She is a narrated fiction story created for discussion and entertainment purposes.
Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. He built his dream home with his own hands, off-grid, debt-free, and far from any HOA. But on move-in day, the power company refused to flip the switch. Why? A forged map, a fake HOA, and one man's fight against a suburban cartel that didn't know who they were messing with. They say the last 10% of a job takes 90% of the time. I used to say that to junior engineers back when I ran my firm in Montana. But standing on the deck of my nearly finished home, high on the rocky slope of an Arizona hillside, I realized just how goddamn true that saying was. My hands were still raw from fitting the final solar panel brackets the day before, and the desert sun wasn't exactly gentle. But it was done. Everything, from the foundation to the drain fields, was mine. I built it myself, every inch of it. 11 acres of privately owned desert terrain, with a view that made Scottsdale look like a distant toy town. This house wasn't just a house. It was a middle finger to every regulation, committee, and HOA that ever tried to tell me what kind of light bulbs I could use. I bought the land 10 years ago. Out of pocket, clean title, confirmed by the county as outside any and all HOA jurisdictions. It took a decade of planning, permits, savings, and a full year of sweat equity to raise it from scratch. This morning, the only thing standing between me and moving in was the power switch. Literally. The utility company had given me the hookup date 2 weeks ago, August 12th, between 10 and 2. I was up at 6, swept the driveway, wiped dust off the main breaker panel, even wore my one clean polo shirt. By 11, there was still no sign of the crew. Noon rolled around, nothing. 2 o'clock, still no truck, no call, no email. Just desert silence and the occasional buzzard flying overhead, like the universe itself was mocking me. I called the utility office. Long hold time. Then a woman with a tired voice finally picked up. I gave her my name, account number, project code. She went silent for a while, tapping on a keyboard. Then she said it. We've received notice that your property falls within the jurisdiction of Sunnycrest Estates Homeowners Association. Connection has been deferred pending HOA approval. I stared at my phone like it had grown teeth. I'm sorry, pending what? Approval from your homeowners association, she repeated flatly. We've been advised that your property is subject to architectural review, and until we receive confirmation from the HOA board, we're not authorized to proceed with the installation. There was a long pause. I could hear her chewing gum. That's not possible, I said finally. I'm not part of an HOA. I have a letter from the county confirming that. The land was never annexed. I own it outright. Independent zoning, I understand, sir, but that's not what we have in the system. That phrase, that's not what we have in the system, hit me like a punch. I'd heard it before, from bureaucrats, banks, city inspectors, and now, apparently, from the goddamn power company. I ended the call before I said something I'd regret, sat down on the edge of the concrete cistern, and stared out at the cactus-covered hills. No power meant no well pump. No well pump meant no water. No electricity meant no HVAC, no internet, no inspection sign-off, and no ability to bring in contractors to finish the final touches. And I was 2 weeks out from moving trucks and appliance delivery. I double-checked my documents. Parcel map, surveyor records, the letter from the zoning office dated 6 years ago, stamped and signed. No HOA, no ambiguity, just one man, his land, and the freedom to build. By sunset, I was dusty, furious, and already planning my next move. I loaded everything into my truck, locked the gate behind me, and headed straight into town. Tomorrow, I'd show up at the utility company in person, with papers, with maps, with a voice that wouldn't be as calm as it was on the phone. And if someone at Sunnycrest thought they could just redraw a line on a map and claim my land, they were about to find out exactly how bad an idea that was. I was at the utility office before they unlocked the doors. It was one of those squat beige buildings on the edge of town, with yellowed blinds and a flickering fluorescent light in the lobby that hadn't worked right since the Bush administration. I had my file folder in hand, thicker than a damn phone book, with every permit, zoning approval, certified letter, stamped map, and photographic satellite overlay I'd collected over the past decade. The receptionist gave me the kind of look usually reserved for people trying to pay their bills in loose change. I told her I was here to talk to whoever oversaw service area disputes. She typed something slowly, then asked me to take a seat. I did, right under that flickering light, and waited 45 minutes until a man in a tie that looked permanently wrinkled called my name. His office smelled like stale coffee and printer toner. He introduced himself as Derek, Customer Service Escalation Manager. Sounded like a made-up job title, but I wasn't in the mood to mock bureaucracy. I laid out my documents like a lawyer in closing arguments. I'm not in any HOA, I said. This is a clean parcel. The land was never under any association. Here's the 2013 exemption letter from the county. Here's the zoning map with the official parcel ID, and here's the surveyor's map with both GPS and legal boundaries. I own this land. And you've been told otherwise by someone who's lying. He looked through everything, nodding politely, but something about his expression was too flat, too resigned. We've got a conflict, he said finally. Our legal department received a letter from Sunnycrest Estates HOA. Attached was a parcel map, also stamped, showing your property inside their jurisdiction. According to them, your home is in violation of HOA architectural standards, and they've issued a denial of approval for infrastructure hookup. A denial of... I caught myself, clenched my jaw. Did it ever occur to you that they might have forged that map? I'm not saying they didn't, he replied. But from our perspective, when there's a jurisdictional dispute, our legal team puts the request on hold until it's resolved. I pointed at my stamped county documents. This is your resolution. You're holding up critical infrastructure because some HOA president thinks drawing a box around my land makes it hers. He gave me a practiced smile, corporate, soulless. That's a legal matter, sir. Not an engineering one. By the time I left, I was seething. They weren't going to help me. Not unless a judge told them to. I'd seen this kind of passive cowardice before. No one wants to be responsible, so they sit on their hands until someone else makes a decision. That's how broken systems survive. Death by red tape. It got worse that evening. I was back at my rental house when the call came. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. A woman's voice. Smooth. Polished. Too polite. Mr. Morton, this is Karen Andrews, president of Sunnycrest Estates HOA. I wanted to speak with you directly. No need for lawyers or letters. I didn't say anything. We've had some confusion about your property, she continued. It borders our community, and there are overlapping service routes. I'm sure you understand the need for consistency, uniformity, but the good news is we can fix this easily. All you need to do is sign the HOA membership form and submit your exterior compliance plan. Once we process it, your electrical connection will be approved immediately. I laughed, not out of amusement, out of disbelief. You're shaking me down for power, I said. She chuckled softly. Oh, don't be dramatic. We're just asking you to do what every other homeowner in the area does. Follow the standards. Your house is unique, a bit industrial. That's fine, but we do require aesthetic review. I'm not in your HOA. Well, she said, her voice hardening just slightly. Until that's legally resolved, you won't be receiving any utilities. And I imagine your construction crews will be rather frustrated trying to finish without power or water. You forged documents. We updated our maps, she replied coldly. If you wish to contest that, feel free to go through the county. Then came the real threat. Soft, subtle, but unmistakable. Of course, while you're contesting things, your project timeline will suffer. Delays, contractor drop-offs, permit rechecks. You know how unpredictable the system can be. Unless, of course, you want to work with us instead of against us. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there in the quiet of my empty kitchen, phone still in hand, heart pounding. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a miscommunication. It was a power play. No pun intended. They thought I'd cave. They thought I was just another retiree with a dream and no fight left in me. They didn't realize I'd built that house with my own hands. I wasn't about to let someone steal it with a pen. I drove back out to the house 2 days later with a couple jugs of water, a toolbox, and the kind of fury that doesn't go away after a single night's sleep. The desert morning was brutal, even by Arizona standards. I pulled up to the private gravel road I had carved myself through the rocky incline, and that's when I saw them. 3 massive concrete barriers, yellow, rectangular, ugly as sin, lined up across the entryway, like tombstones. Each one was spray-painted with crude block letters, HOA access review pending. Next to the barriers was a laminated notice zip-tied to a mesquite tree like some sort of corporate noose. Stop work order. Parcel under jurisdictional dispute review. All activity prohibited pending resolution with Sunnycrest Estates HOA. They even slapped their damn logo on it. A little sun over a row of fake-ass houses. I slammed the truck door so hard it echoed down the ravine. I marched straight up to the blocks and tried to budge one. Didn't even wiggle. These weren't just for show. These bastards rented a flatbed and had them delivered. The rage boiled up so fast I nearly blacked out. I grabbed the laminated notice, tore it off, and tossed it into the bed of my truck like a trophy. Then I called the sheriff's department. When the deputy showed up, he looked like a man who'd rather be doing anything else. I handed him the documents, showed him the gate camera footage, or rather, the lack of it. Someone had slipped the barriers in during a blackout window between solar charges. Clever. He walked the perimeter, checked the barriers, then leaned on his cruiser with a sigh. "You're telling me these folks put these on your land?" he asked. "I'm not telling you," I replied. "I'm showing you. This road is a recorded easement to my property. All of this is mine. HOA has no jurisdiction here." He looked at the stamped zoning map, rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah. Look, Mr. Morton, I believe you. But they've filed a notice of pending jurisdictional review with the county, which means legally, until the court rules otherwise, we're in a gray zone." "A gray zone," I spat. "Are you out of your damn mind?" "They dropped concrete on my driveway." He held up his hands. "Easy. I'm not siding with them. But here's the reality. I can't order those blocks removed without a court order or unless they're clearly impeding emergency services, which they're not. Technically, they're impeding me." "You're not an emergency," he said flatly. Then added, "Yet." I stared at him for a long moment. "What can you do?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Well," he said, "I can remove that sign for you. That's not a legal county-issued order, so it's just a piece of laminated bullshit. And if you catch anyone entering the property without your consent, that's trespassing." "That's it?" "That's it." After he left, I sat on the hood of my truck and stared at the house in the distance. It was so close I could see the glint off the solar array, but unreachable, isolated, like a goddamn hostage tied to a cactus. That night, I stayed in the cab of my truck, parked just outside the barrier. I wasn't leaving my land unattended again. I set up motion-triggered cams with battery backup, mounted a spotlight on the roof rack, and logged everything in a journal like a paranoid prepper, which, at this point, maybe I was. I started documenting every interaction, every phone call, every passive-aggressive HOA notice that appeared in my mailbox. I even took a photo of a stray HOA flyer someone jammed under my windshield wiper that read, "Your refusal to comply with community standards is hurting property values. We urge you to reconsider cooperation. That was their word for surrender. I wasn't building a house anymore. I was building a battleground. They had their barriers. I had my cameras. And we were now officially at war. I don't remember sleeping that night. Just the slow hum of my truck's inverter keeping the cameras alive and the buzzing in my skull as I flipped through printed maps for the 100th time, searching for something I missed. Anything. A discrepancy in a boundary line, a survey marker, some little detail that would obliterate whatever fantasy map Sunnycrest had cooked up. Nothing, because I hadn't missed a goddamn thing. By mid-morning, I was back in town. Not at the utility office this time, but sitting across from a real estate attorney in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and laminate wood polish. His name was Brandon Ye. Young, sharp, the kind of guy who wore a suit like he was still trying to impress his law school professor, but he knew land law and I needed teeth. I spread everything on the table. Topographic maps, my stamped parcel data, aerial images from Google Earth dating back to 2007. Brandon spent 20 minutes flipping through them, nodding. "Okay," he said finally, "your land is clean. Zoned independent rural residential. Not part of any subdivision, not subject to any recorded. You've got a full exemption. Tell that to the HOA," I muttered. "Oh, I will." He drafted the first letter that afternoon. A cease and desist to the Sunnycrest board demanding immediate removal of the concrete blocks, retraction of their interference with utility providers, and a formal admission that their review had no legal basis. He also sent a notice of intent to litigate for trespass, interference with infrastructure, and defamation. Strong words. Too strong, maybe, but I was done being nice. That same evening, I posted cameras higher up on the ridge, solar-powered units with night vision and cellular uplink. No more blackout gaps. If someone so much as sneezed near my fence line, I'd know about it. The next move came from them, and it was worse than I expected. Karen must have realized I was lawyering up because the HOA kicked into full propaganda mode. Flyers started appearing in every mailbox along the edge of the community, mine included, even though legally I wasn't part of the community. They were full of half-truths, bold lies, and slick language. A local construction project has violated community architectural standards and poses a safety hazard due to unregulated access. We urge residents to demand proper compliance from the unauthorized builder before further damage occurs to shared property values. They were painting me like some rogue builder, a squatter, a parasite. Some neighbors, the ones closer to the real boundary line, started giving me looks when I drove past. One guy, bald with mirrored shades and a truck full of fertilizer, actually flipped me off when I waved. Brandon told me not to respond. "They're baiting you," he said. "Don't give them an excuse to claim you're harassing residents." But I couldn't sit still. I needed something to tip the scales, hard proof that they were overreaching. That's when I started digging into how they'd faked the map. I drove down to the county recorder's office, flashed my parcel number, and requested the digital changelog on file for my property boundaries. The clerk hesitated, then printed the metadata sheet. There it was. A document modification request submitted 6 months ago, referencing my parcel, originated from a county staffer named Bradley Harvey. I'd never heard of him. I got his name, title, email, and drove straight to Brandon's office. "Can we subpoena this guy?" Brandon smiled. "We're going to do one better. We're going to audit the entire HOA's boundary claims." He filed a discovery motion in civil court and launched a complaint with the Arizona Department of Real Estate, accusing Sunny Crest of fraudulent annexation. We were done playing defense. Then, by pure damn luck, I ran into my neighbor Samir, a quiet guy, early 40s, software engineer type, lived 2 lots over. He flagged me down as I was restocking my trail cams. "I heard about the power issue," he said. "You're not in the HOA, right?" "No, you." I wasn't. Then Karen came by last year with some expedited access form. Said it was just a service authorization. I didn't think much of it. I could feel my jaw clenching. "You still have a copy?" He nodded. "I think I got the PDF somewhere." That night, he emailed me the form. It was titled Community Access Coordination Form. Sounded harmless, but the fine print buried in paragraph 5. It was a declaration of consent to join Sunny Crest HOA. Binding and irrevocable. She tricked him, and probably others. I sent the form to Brandon. His reply came 5 minutes later. "We got her." That was the first time in weeks I actually smiled. I always thought that when you finally got the upper hand on someone like Karen, there'd be this big cinematic moment. Thunderclaps, dramatic music, the whole 9 yards. But in reality, it happened in a quiet conference room above a strip mall, with the faint smell of Subway sandwiches leaking through the air vent. Brandon had called in a favor from a friend, a forensic auditor named Melissa, who specialized in HOA and nonprofit financials. She looked like someone's cool aunt, wore thick black glasses, and had a laugh that could disarm a rattlesnake. But her laptop was lethal. In 4 hours flat, she'd cracked into Sunny Crest's publicly filed documentation, combed through their tax-exempt status, and flagged half a dozen irregularities that wouldn't mean much to a layman. But to someone like me, who used to review infrastructure budgets, they screamed fraud. But the real bombshell came when she managed to get access to a private online portal, a restricted community forum for board members only. No passwords were leaked, no hacks were needed. She had a copy of the old board packet from the fired HOA accountant. Inside, a link to the admin login and a sticky note with the default password, Sunny 2020. Karen, you paranoid amateur. The forum was a goldmine. Meeting transcripts, scanned documents, internal messages, and buried in a folder marked Archive, Do Not Delete was the jackpot. A set of step-by-step templates labeled Consent Expansion Strategy. Each template had a purpose, one for initial contact letters that disguised HOA enrollment as a service coordination form, another for jurisdictional claim letters sent to service providers. One even had fake letterhead templates for the county recorder's office. And then, the messages. "We can't let him get online. Without power, he can't organize. Delay is our friend. Once he misses the building inspection window, he's screwed. If Morton keeps resisting, I'll just have Brad update the parcel overlay. We've done it before. They were talking about me by name. There was even one to a paving contractor, a guy I'd tried to hire a few months ago, where Karen explicitly said, "Don't respond to Morton. We're applying pressure. When he caves, we'll approve you for the retaining wall contract at the new phase." So that's why no one would call me back. Brandon's eyes widened as I forwarded him the full package. "This isn't just civil," he said. "This is coordinated property fraud, possibly even RICO-level conspiracy. We submitted everything to the county, to the state attorney general, to the Department of Real Estate." Brandon filed a motion to amend our original suit into a multi-pronged civil and criminal complaint. He included screenshots, metadata logs, and declarations from me, Samir, and another neighbor, Miguel, who came forward with a nearly identical access form from last year. Miguel's case was worse. They'd not only tricked him into joining the HOA, they'd been billing him for dues and late fees, and had put a lien on his house for non-payment when he tried to fight it. Now we were 3. Meanwhile, I did what any pissed-off engineer with free time and no electricity would do. I got creative. I mounted a tall antenna to the back of my truck, fitted it with a solar charger, and launched a personal hotspot via a cell uplink. Bandwidth was crap, but enough to get online. Then I bought a domain name, hovictimzaz.com. It looked like a fake HOA site at first glance. Similar colors, fonts, layout. But instead of bylaws and friendly stock photos of smiling families, it had PDF evidence, timelines, links to legal forms, and step-by-step instructions on how to spot and fight jurisdictional fraud. And at the very top, Sunny Crest, HOA, a case study in organized extortion. Karen must have seen it within 24 hours because the next day, I got an email from a Gmail address named Sunny Civic Legal Help. "You are in violation of online defamation statutes. Take the site down immediately, or we will pursue litigation." I didn't even bother to respond. I just added the email to the list of screenshots and updated the homepage with a bold banner, "Update, HOA threatening free speech." Read the full email here. I didn't just want to win, I wanted her cornered, exposed. And when the state attorney general's office sent me a formal acknowledgement of receipt and confirmation that they were opening a preliminary investigation into Sunny Crest, I knew we were close. Then came the icing on the cake. Samir texted me a photo, Karen, in broad daylight, knocking on a neighbor's door, clipboard in hand, handing out another one of her access forms. The neighbor didn't sign, but they filmed the whole thing. I uploaded the video. By that weekend, my site had over 12,000 visits. If there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that bureaucracy fears 2 things, sunlight and workaround. I'd given them sunlight, exposed every greasy, forged corner of Sunny Crest HOA's operations. Now it was time for the workaround. I knew they'd never approve the mainline connection. Not while Karen had her claws sunk into the utility company, and Bradley the zoning rat still had access to the parcel overlay system. The standard route was poisoned, but Arizona law had a funny little clause buried in the public infrastructure code. One I remembered from years back when I built off-grid cabins in the Bitterroots. It allowed private utility contractors to create alternative access lines for independently zoned properties, provided the route didn't interfere with HOA-maintained infrastructure and followed federal easements. I called every electrical contractor in the Tri-County area until I found one willing to talk off the record. Ramon, a no-nonsense guy with a shaved head and a truck that looked like it had been through 3 wars. "You really pissed them off," he said on the phone. "They earned it. I looked at your topo map. You've got an old service easement on the north slope. It's longer, steeper, pain in the ass to trench, but doable. Might cost you double do it." Ramon's team showed up in unmarked trucks 3 days later, just before dawn. We ran temporary orange fencing along the property line, then marked out a route that snaked around the Sunny Crest border and linked directly to a public power node near an old service road the county had stopped maintaining years ago. No HOA lines. No permits required, entirely legal. While his crew started trenching, I stayed on overwatch, scanning cameras, monitoring HOA roads, waiting for the inevitable intrusion. And, right on cue, she came. Karen showed up just after lunch in a white BMW SUV, flanked by 2 security guards who looked like they were hired more for intimidation than any actual training. She parked halfway across the gravel shoulder, got out in heels like she was arriving at a fundraiser, and walked straight toward the crew. I intercepted her. "You need to vacate this property," I said, calmly, but loud enough for the cameras to pick up. "I demand to speak with the foreman," she barked. "This connection is unauthorized. You are accessing community-adjacent lines." "Nope," I said. "Private contractor. Federal easement, no community lines. Want the permit?" "I've got a copy laminated," she scowled. "This is obstructionist behavior. You're circumventing official approval channels. You mean your fake map and bribed county clerk?" That hit her hard. She turned bright red. Then she looked straight at the contractor who was standing 10 feet away, holding a spool of cable. "If you proceed, you are violating a cease and desist." He didn't even blink. "Ma'am, I'm working under Article 14, subsection D of the Arizona Infrastructure Protection Act. You can read it online," she snapped. Pulled out her phone and started recording like she was the wronged party in some viral video. "I'm documenting this," she said. "You're all going to be held accountable when this goes to court." "Great," I said. "I'm documenting you too. Smile for the cams. There are 6 of them watching you right now." That's when she made the mistake. She pointed at Ramon's foreman and said, "If you hook that line up, I'll have the sheriff on you in 20 minutes, and I'll make sure your license is revoked. I'll bury this project." That was it. A clear, recorded threat made on my land to a licensed contractor during lawful infrastructure work. I called the sheriff's department. By the time the cruiser arrived, Karen was still there, arms crossed like a bratty teenager caught spray painting a church. The deputy was the same one who'd seen the concrete blocks a few weeks back. He was more interested this time. We showed him the video, the laminated permit, the easement papers. Then I showed him the screenshots of her threats, her fake HOA letterhead, the name Bradley Harvey next to a parcel update request. He nodded, asked Karen to step aside for a private word, then walked back over to me 10 minutes later. "She's being cited for trespassing and harassment, and we're forwarding the rest of this to the county attorney." I nodded. "Appreciate it." As they led her back to her car, she hissed something under her breath. "This isn't over, Morton." I smiled. "No, Karen, it's just starting that night. For the first time in weeks, I flipped a switch inside my house, and the lights came on." I walked into court wearing a black button-down, sleeves rolled, no tie. I wasn't trying to play the humble country boy card. I just wanted to look like a man who built his own house and wasn't about to let it get stolen with a fake map and a printed logo. Karen, on the other hand, arrived flanked by her attorney and 2 members of the HOA board, dressed like it was a damn charity gala. Pearls, blazer, white blouse, buttoned all the way to her fragile little ego. She didn't look at me, not once. The case had ballooned into something far beyond a zoning dispute. Thanks to Brandon's filings, it now included trespass, infrastructure interference, defamation, fraudulent jurisdictional claims, and conspiracy to commit annexation fraud. The state attorney general hadn't filed criminal charges yet, but the civil case was stacked so high it was practically begging for an indictment. The judge was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, sharp eyes, and 0 patience. She made it very clear this wasn't going to be a drawn-out circus. Evidence first, testimony second, closing statements third. No theatrics, no bullshit. Good luck with that, I thought. Brandon started with a slow burn. Presented the parcel map history, the county's original zoning documentation, the stamped exemption letter. Then he brought out the altered version Sunnycrest had sent to the utility company, complete with metadata showing it had been edited on a private machine registered to, surprise, Karen Andrews. Next came the correspondence. The email from Karen posing as a regional infrastructure liaison, complete with a fake signature line and made-up department seal. The judge raised an eyebrow at that one. Then we dropped the hammer, the HOA internal documents, all legally obtained, courtesy of Melissa, including the Consent Expansion Strategy folder. Brandon read the titles aloud. Access Compliance Templates, Suggested Pressure Phrases, Alternative Acquisition Justifications. The courtroom was silent except for the click of the ceiling fan. Karen's lawyer tried to object, citing context, but the judge waved him off like a mosquito. Then came the recordings. First, Karen threatening the private contractor during my alternative hookup, and then a screen recording of her internal messages discussing my case by name, talking about delaying tactics, inspection sabotage, and utility interference. You could feel the temperature in the room shift. Even her own board members started looking at each other sideways. Karen took the stand 2 hours in. Her voice was steady at first, too steady rehearsed. She said I was an aggressive, non-compliant landholder who had refused repeated requests to coordinate with the surrounding community. She insisted the map had been updated for accuracy by a third party. She claimed the service block was placed temporarily for safety. And then Brandon calmly asked, "Did you ever receive formal authorization from the county to annex the plaintiff's property?" "No, but we believed." "Just yes or no, Ms. Andrews." "No." "Did you ever inform the plaintiff in writing that he was being included in your jurisdiction?" "No, but..." "Did you submit any of the changes through a public hearing or vote of your association?" She hesitated. "No." And then he asked about the internal documents. That's when it cracked. Karen got defensive, rambling, tried to explain away the templates as drafts, claimed someone else may have uploaded them. She blamed Brad Harvey for going rogue, claimed she was being targeted by a conspiracy of anti-HOA extremists. She began pointing fingers at board members, at the contractor, at the utility company, at me. The judge leaned forward and asked quietly, "Ms. Andrews, did you personally instruct service providers to withhold access to the plaintiff's utilities?" And that's when Karen snapped. She slammed her hand on the witness table and shouted, "I did what I had to do!" He was building a bunker, not a home. Brandon didn't move. Neither did I. The judge stared at her for a moment, then calmly turned to the bailiff. "Remove the witness." There was a stunned silence as Karen was escorted out of the courtroom, muttering to herself, clutching her purse like it held the last scraps of dignity. Her lawyer sat frozen, blinking like a man who just realized his client was radioactive. An hour later, the judge issued the preliminary ruling. Karen was found personally liable for fraudulent interference and misrepresentation. Sunny Crest HOA was ordered to cease all jurisdictional claims over my property, remove any liens or documents filed with third parties, and issue a formal written retraction to the utility company and Public Works Department. A follow-up hearing would determine monetary damages. The case file would be referred to the Maricopa County District Attorney for possible criminal prosecution, including document forgery and misuse of public office. Brandon shook my hand like we'd just landed on the moon. Outside, reporters were already gathering. Word had leaked, probably from one of the board members who realized they'd been riding shotgun with a lunatic. A woman from the local station asked me, "Do you feel vindicated?" I looked into the camera and said, "I feel like I finally got my lights turned on. Everything else is just bonus voltage." The final ruling came 3 weeks later in a tidy envelope with the court seal and my name printed across the front like a goddamn trophy. I opened it sitting on the same deck where I'd once waited for a utility truck that never came, the same place I'd built with my own hands, board by board, nail by nail, while a fake HOA president tried to seize it with a spreadsheet and a smile. It was official now. The court awarded me $280,000 in compensatory damages for construction delays, legal fees, contractor penalties, and emotional distress. The judge confirmed in bold type that my property was never subject to any HOA jurisdiction, past or present. The county clerk was ordered to permanently restore the original boundary filings and launch an internal review of the parcel modification process. And Karen Andrews. She was remanded into custody pending trial on charges of document forgery, impersonation of a public official, and conspiracy to commit zoning fraud. Her accomplice, our old friend Bradley Harvey, had already resigned from his post and flipped for leniency. Turns out, he'd falsified at least 6 other boundary changes in exchange for HOA donations. His laptop was now in the hands of the state prosecutor. I didn't attend the sentencing, but Brandon sent me the news article. HOA president sentenced to 6 years in state prison for property fraud. They printed her mugshot under a headline that used the word Karen in the most poetic way possible. I installed floodlights the following weekend. Not just any lights, industrial-grade, motion-sensitive LED arrays mounted on custom steel brackets. I welded myself. They lit up my driveway like a landing strip and cast a warm, blazing glow across the eastern ridge, directly facing Sunny Crest Estates. I made damn sure they were within legal lumens, of course. I even checked with the county. Some HOA residents tried to complain. The county told them it was private property and fully compliant. One guy came up the road to confront me, said I was taunting them. I offered him a beer. He declined. Then came the real moment of peace. I mounted a handmade aluminum sign at the edge of my freshly cleared driveway. 6 feet tall, laser-engraved lettering. Private electrified property. Not HOA. Not negotiable. I bolted it into a block of poured concrete and lined the base with river rock, just for aesthetics. The camera footage caught the moment Karen's replacement, a nervous-looking man with a clipboard, stopped his car in front of it, stared for a full minute, and drove away without stepping out. Poetry. But I wasn't done. Brandon and I took all the evidence, the fake forms, the altered maps, the screenshots of coercion emails, and turned it into something useful. I compiled it into a free downloadable guide, co-authored with a few other property owners who'd been through similar hell. We called it Landlocked: How to Defend Your Property from Unauthorized HOA Encroachment. We published it online, printed hard copies, and mailed them to zoning boards, independent builders, and community advocates. Within a month, it hit over 60,000 downloads. I even got a call from a local NPR affiliate who wanted to do an interview. I declined. I said the guide says everything that needs to be said. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about insulation, protection, ensuring that no one else gets boxed in by fake authority, forced into compliance by people who treat land like monopoly property. Now, every night when I sit on my deck and crack open a beer, I look out over the desert and see my lights shining back at the very people who tried to turn my home into their territory. And every night, they have to sit in the dark and pretend they don't see it.